What up YouTube, Salvador Brigman here, and today we're talking about how to be a good podcasting host. How to be a good host of your podcast, whether you have an informational style podcast like mine, or if you have more of like an entertainment show, a comedy show, maybe you're discussing current events or politics, the wacky world of politics, all of the crazy stuff that's going on. This video is going to show you how to be a little bit better of a host. And this is from my own experience, having to become a lot better at things like talking, warming people up, making sure we have a good interview, and also asking guests on my show, how would you have liked that to gone better? Or how would you have liked to had a better experience on my podcast? This is the advice that I'm sharing here today. So the first thing I want to say is there's sort of this overarching conception that I used to have about being an interviewer. And that is like, you have these specific interview questions that you're going to ask. And you're first going to ask this one, and then that one. It's going to sort of lead the guest through the interview. And it's a very logical kind of framework that I had when I was doing my podcast. But what I realized was that the best interviews I've listened to, the best interviews, the best guests that I've had, quite frankly, it didn't come from a place of logic. It came from a place of storytelling. When I was listening to the show, I was just baffled and amazed by a story that one of the guests showed or shared on the show. Or I was just like astounded by this incredible personal revelation that this person had. And they quite readily admit, I didn't really expect to share that on the podcast. I shared things on this show that I haven't shared anywhere else. So as I started to think about that, and also you can think of, the best interviews that you've heard, the best interviews that you've heard. When you begin to think about that and you realize, wow, not only is there this logical, structured component to the interview, but there also has to be room for some serendipity to occur. There has to be some room for fortunate accident, for luck, for stories to bubble to the surface, for revelations to come about. You have to have, yes, this structure where you have knowing what you're going to ask, knowing where you're going to lead the guest, but you also have to leave some room for some random events to occur. So that is the hallmark of a successful podcast show. If you get to the end and you're like, well, we hit all the questions that I had, that's probably not going to be the best show. But if we're like, wow, that was incredible. I didn't even know that you did X, Y, and Z. Or I didn't even know, this story. I didn't even plan to ask you about that. Just when it has a little bit of serendipity, that's going to be a great podcast. The next thing, which kind of goes into the having a serendipitous podcast, having these different moments, is having a well-prepared guest. So you want the guest to feel comfortable. When we feel like defensive or we feel in some way threatened, we're never going to actually open up and share all of the amazing stories that we have. We're also just not likely to think of these different things. When we feel defensive, we're like freezing up. We're just going to revert to our scripted behavior, the things that we know that work. We're going to give the same answers that we've given to everyone else who's asked us this question. You get very defensive, you pull in, and you're not willing to share. So what you want to do if you are a podcast host is you want the guest to feel as comfortable as possible. You want to ease them into the interview. You most want them to feel like they're just talking to a long-lost friend, or they're talking to you. No one else is listening to this. It's very casual. It's okay to mess up. There are a few easy ways to do this. Number one, obviously, is giving them a few bullet points of the things that you're going to talk about before you go live. One of the things that I do is I'll have my assistant send out questions to the guests, asking them, hey, would you mind giving me 3 to 5 bullet points, just one sentence each, of either things you want to talk about, lessons that you've learned you'd like to share on the show, maybe a story that you can share with the listeners. And by doing that, that's actually not for my benefit. I'm very comfortable asking questions and sort of getting into the mind of the guest. That's more for the guest. That's so that they feel more confident going into the podcast interview. They feel like they have a few things they can grasp or hold on to. They know to a certain degree what we're going to talk about, so they feel more relaxed and confident, feeling like they know what's to come. Now, the actual behind the scenes is that, I'll ask a few questions from that, really, I want to kind of veer us into these different other avenues. I really want to get to the stories and the lessons that they aren't willing to readily share, and to open them up and warm them up to the ability to do that. So number one, make sure you prepare the guest thoroughly with information, with what they should expect. Have them come up with a few things that they can share beforehand. So that's the interview prep period. Number two, you want to do a little bit of social vibing. So what is social vibing? Social vibing is like, let's just say we're on a Skype call right now. We're about to go live in 15 seconds or 30 seconds. I'm talking to you very casually, just like I am now. Like if you were sitting here in this room, I'd be talking to you like, hey man, like where are you from? What kind of stuff do you like to do? When did you start the business? Nice, I started the podcast at this time. And then we go live and I switch to, and welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast, where we're talking about blah, 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 blah. I put on a caricature when we go live. And doing that, a lot of podcasters do that, where they switch from talking very normally with you to, and welcome to the podcast, how are you doing, where are you from? When you switch to that caricature, the guest automatically goes back into their shell, because they're like, oh shoot, we're live, I don't want to mess up, I don't want to sound dumb, I'm going to reply intelligently and think of every single word that I have to say, and it kind of puts them in that defensive mindset. Instead, if you work to show them your authentic self before you go live, and then when you go live, you stay authentic, or I guess if you really wanted to, you could just start the call in your personality, and then when you go live, you stay with your personality so they feel like there's no transition there. It's going to make them much more likely to feel at ease. So let's just say we were on the Skype call, 15 seconds before we go live. We're just talking a little bit, like, oh, where are you from? Where did you go to school? What kind of work do you do? Do you have kids, etc.? And now we go live. We're like, hey man, welcome to the podcast. Like, where are you from? Where are you hailing in from? That's gonna be a much more easy way to actually transition into the show there, versus if you adopt some kind of a caricature, it's just gonna put people on the defensive. So it's a very easy way to put people in the comfortable mindset when you're going live. Another way, when you actually are live, you're live doing the podcast, is to mess up yourself. Because when you mess up yourself and you're like, oh geez, I shouldn't have said that, or I'm totally butchering this right now, you have a little bit of self-depreciating humor there, the person is gonna feel way more comfortable. When you're like, oh man, we might have to edit that out, that was a horrible way to say that. Anyway, and then you ask a question, the person is gonna feel like, oh, it's no big deal. It's okay to be myself. It's okay to mess up. It's okay if I'm stuttering or I'm stammering a little bit. There's no time component here. We're just two guys that are talking here, or a guy and a girl. We're just going over this topic. It's very informal. Now, behind the scenes, it might look different. It's not informal. You have the questions, you have the structure of the interview, you have what you want to get out of it. But by that person feeling as though this is an informal interview, they're going to share things that they readily would not share. They're going to speak much more authentically and much more transparency. When I ask you a question, you're more likely to think about that, give your actual opinion, versus go with your scripted, automatic kind of reply that you give to any other interviewer out there, because you feel like that interviewer is just trying to get something out of you. So when you're doing the live podcast, by doing that, the person is going to vibe off of your own energy and off of your own way that you conduct yourself. So if you're very logic and tight-knit and uptight, they're also going to think, oh, I should be like that on the podcast. If you're very relaxed and joking around and having fun, they're going to be like, oh, it's okay to do that on the show. So this is another way that you can actually bring some more authenticity to the podcast. But I think that's something that really is not talked a lot about, is understanding why the guest is coming on the show. So if you want to be a good podcast host, you really want to make sure that your guests are having a good time and that they're going to come back to your podcast, and also invite other people to come on your show, which is the hallmark of a good podcast. What you want to do is you want to identify why it is this guest is coming on your show. Why now? Why are they looking to gain access to your audience. What do they want to get out of this experience? And number one, that could be they're looking to promote something like a book, a course, a new product, an announcement, something like that. But there's also something behind the scenes that they're looking to get out of that interview. And I always try to get to the crux of that. So of course I'm going to hit, like, oh, where can people check you out online? Why is it that you created this product? And get that off their shoulders, because they're like, okay, we already promoted this, we talked about this, okay, now I can relax a little bit. I don't have to remember to always be talking and selling and etc. It allows them to relax a little bit. Number two is, of course I have my questions, like I want to get advice and stuff out of this interview, but I also want them to feel good about the process. So I'll usually think to myself, okay, what does this guest want out of this interview? Some of my guests want to share information or thoughts or things that they have for other people that are going through this process. They want to pass on advice. Other people want to share, like, wow, I really liked this component of the process. I really liked this component of launching a new business. This was my favorite part. This is something that I just really enjoyed. And when I get them talking about something that they liked or something that they enjoyed, they're like, wow, I'm having a really good time right now. Because we all like to talk about things that we like or that we enjoy. Now, other guests that come on the show, they kind of want to spell like words of warning. They're like, man, like I totally messed up with this thing. I want to make sure no one else messes up. So I'll really get into that in the interview. And a lot of this is kind of done real time. Like I'm putting a barometer on them. I'm seeing like, okay, what questions are they getting emotional about? When does their voice begin to, they start to speak more quickly, or they start to speak with more emotional enthusiasm in their voice. You're not just giving like automatic or very boring answers and they're talking very monotone like this, like, yeah, it was really cool. Whenever I hit that emotional peak in someone's voice, I make sure to ask them more questions around that, because then they're talking about something that they want to in the interview. And what I do is, I have my own set of questions. I have the things that I want to get out of the interview, but I know if I was to go with that for 40 minutes, that guest is going to get really bored, and also the audience is going to get bored. So I will pepper in questions that are meant to sort of get the audience's attention back to that moment, or to get the guest being like, oh yeah, like, and then this blah, 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 and then we get back into more of like the logical things that I need to cover for the interview. So the final tip that I have for you, I know this is going longer. I always, end up having longer videos because I want to get more comprehensive for you guys. And of course, if you want more videos like this, go and check out some of the other videos that I have on this channel. My final tip for you, if you want to be a good podcast host, you want to make sure that your guests have a good time, that they come back, you improve your download numbers, etc., is to get something out of the interview, to know what you want to get out of this process. If you just go in and you're a very placating host, you're always just agreeing with the guest, you're always just like having them promote their link or sharing what they want, or allowing them to take the conversation to wherever they want, that is not a good podcast host. Like, yes, the guest might have a good experience, but your podcast is not growing. You're not being able to tailor the interview in such a way that it's a win-win, that's also a good thing for you. If the guest is taking the conversation wherever they want, and they're going to different areas that are either harmful to your brand or that aren't staying on track in a meaningful way, it is not a good interview. So the final tip, if you want to be a good podcast host, is to know what you want out of the process. So for example, with me, I might specifically ask the guest, what do you think the value of education is? Or what do you think the value of having a mentor or a coach is? Or do you wish, before you went into this process, that you spent money on advertising or marketing? And the reason I'm asking that is because I have a stake in this. I provide marketing, coaching services, I provide books and courses and education. So when they say, yes, I wish I had read a book, or yes, I wish I had hired a marketing firm, or yes, I wish I had spent money on advertising or built up an advertising budget, that is good for me. Because then I can say at the end of the interview, As you see, John wished that he had a coach going to this process. This is a service that I offer. If you are interested in that, you can go to this link. So a good podcast is going to be a win-win situation both for you and for the guest. And if it's only good for the guest, you're not going to stay in business. You're not going to end up having people that are able to return to your podcast because you're not going to be making any money. So that's something that not many people will admit, but it's something that is very true when it comes to podcasting. Now, finally, if you have made it this far into the video, you think that this advice has been helpful, and you want more tips like this, I put together a book for you, which is now available on Amazon. It's called Podcasting for Beginners. So this book goes through a lot of different things, including the equipment you need if you want to start a podcast, how to actually create it and launch it, how to get traffic to it, how to get downloads, and also how to make money from it. How do you monetize your podcast? It goes into all of that, and it's available on Amazon. So I'm also going to link up this book in the description of this YouTube video. But basically, the reason I want to put together this book is, for me, I went from 0 to 150,000 downloads. And I sound way different now than I did then. When I first got started podcasting, I was very meek, I was very introverted, I was very shy, I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't seeing regular downloads of my show. I wasn't really making any money whatsoever. So I went through this entire journey of having to figure things out. Having to figure out how to project my voice, having to figure out how to inject emotion into my voice, learning about the different equipment you need with podcasting, learning about how to get guests on my show, the different types of shows, informational shows, entertaining shows, all of this kind of stuff I learned, and I packaged that in this book for you. So rather than having to go through, a year or 2 years figuring this all out yourself, you can just go and grab a copy of this guide and get up to date on all of that knowledge, and also what many other podcasters out there are doing to run successful shows. So I'm going to link that up in the description of this YouTube video. But again, my name is Sal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.